saint today.
Go.
Poet, writer, black man extraordinaire.
Appreciate it.
So we celebrate you. We appreciate you. We're so honored to have you. And so we've been getting such great feedback concerning shame, vulnerability. We had a young lady here that we interviewed the last two sessions. And I mean, her testimony is phenomenal. Single mother, right? Four different fathers. But she's totally come into acceptance with that, right? She totally accepts responsibility for her life, right? And she has been a light to other women that, hey, it's okay to let go of the hurt, the shame, the guilt, right? The fear, so that you can basically live your best life.
Right.
So I felt like it would be an awesome thing for us to really dive into the man's perspective,
Let's
right?
do it. Right.
So one of the first things I want to talk about is mental health, right?
Okay.
I feel like there's this awakening happening with black women in terms of mental health and wellness. And I think guys are kind of late to the party, right? Especially in the culture with black men. It's viewed as, something they don't need, right? That they don't acknowledge. It's just like, no, I'm cool. I can handle it on my own. And with women, it's kind of like me and my girlfriends talk about mental health, like we talking about going to get our hair and nails done, right? It's kind of like, girl, listen, I'm going to my therapist this week. How about you? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like we're so comfortable talking about that. And just a moment of transparency, and I think I mentioned this before, I literally took off last semester for mental health purposes. So I literally took the whole semester off. I was in a really dark place. Found a really good therapist who focused on cognitive therapy as well and trauma. And so I had to deal with some things in my childhood, right? Well, not really childhood, but as a young adult. And those things really needed to be addressed. And so I had to address them before I could really move on. So I want to talk about mental health in the black community because as we see that suicide rates are going up among black men, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, all type of mental illnesses that we're not addressing. And mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of because there's a lot of people who deal with depression. 1 in 4 people deal with depression every year, right? That's a lot.
That's
a whole lot.
Too much, right?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why men have been so silent in regards to their mental health. Black men specifically.
We got to let the ego fly. You know what I'm saying? We have to let the ego fly.
Okay.
I believe that's one of the reasons why it's not brought up as it should. You know what I mean? Black men have this stigma of being too strong, wanting to be too strong, too masculine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they only want to talk about material possessions.
Yeah, that's true.
You feel what I'm saying? But when we dig into the innermost part of a man and really touch on the spirit and the soul aspect, that's when men begin to break all that up, and then we can really go to that place. As a matter of fact, this past Friday, I just met with a brother who was saying he was having mental issues.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I just this past Friday. And so to sit there and listen to the brother just talk about his mental state, to really get that out, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It was such a vulnerable moment. You
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying? But it was strength in it as well though.
Yes.
That's the thing that men have to understand. Just because you may feel like something may make you vulnerable, that's when you're at your strongest, when you recognize your vulnerability.
Absolutely. And that was nice that he was even vulnerable enough to confide in you about that. So that says a lot about his relationship with you and that he trusted you enough to confide in you about that. Gosh, it is such a huge thing. Mental health, listen, I have so many friends who have dealt with mental health issues in the past couple of years, and like I said, it's one of those things that we're finally starting to talk about because I have people in other communities, I have white girlfriends and Asian girlfriends and Indian girlfriends where, they have family therapists. Right? So it's like, oh, we have someone on call or anything like that. So whenever they're they're not feeling so well or, they feel a little bit of depressed, it's a phone call away. They have family therapists who they can call. Right? And I was like, when have you ever heard of a black person?
I ain't never heard that.
Yeah.
I ain't never heard that.
Exactly. I think the first person of color that I ever heard who has a therapist, on call is Pastor Rudy. of St. John's. Right. He's like the only person that I knew of who was like, yeah, we have a family therapist. And I was like, Black folks do that? So I'm just so glad to hear that. Yeah. You mentioned another thing about being too strong, right?
Right.
So there's this idea of hypermasculinity, right? That guys feel like they can't be powerful and sensitive at the same time. And so the way we are seeing hypermasculinity portrayed is in these very self-sabotaging ways, right? Right. Where you got to sleep with as many women as possible. Fighting and violence is the way they kind of show that they're tough and they're macho. And it's just like, why do you think guys feel like they have to act that way? Or why is that a thing in our society? This whole hypermasculinity.
Man, if I was to really bank on it, I would say a lost identity. Ooh. Not truly knowing who they really are, who we really are.
Yes.
As men. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why I would start with that. Like, you gotta have the balance. It's okay to be powerful.
Right.
However, at the same time, understand the sensitive side, understand the vulnerability side in that being powerful. You just can't be all powerful.
Right.
Like, even God himself, even though he's almighty, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
He does have that side to him.
Yes,
you feel me?
very much
he has
so.
a wrath side, but then he has a warm side to him as well. And that balances him out, because if he was all wrath, nobody could stand before him.
That's right.
You feel me?
That's right.
But he's so merciful that he has that side to where he can be vulnerable and say, I forgive you.
That's right.
You feel me? And so even as men, we have to understand that, we can be strong, but understand when you are weak as well.
That's right.
Let's talk about the weakness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we know we can sit around all day and talk about how strong we are, but let's talk about those areas where we fall short. Let's talk about, as I like to call, the King David syndrome, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So so the hypermasculinity, like that's just a cover up. That is just a cover up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We have to understand who we are as Black men.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest Black men that really showed us who we was Malcolm X.
Oh yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah, like Malcolm was a tough guy.
Yeah,
loved him.
Like he showed us like who we really are as men.
Yeah.
Like real rap. So as men, we have to understand, like, look, man, it ain't all about how many women you slept with. It ain't all about what you have or what you got, man. It's about who you are.
That's right.
And that's what Malcolm left us with. He left us with who he was.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think people have to learn how to differentiate between what you've done and who you are.
There we go.
Right?
Talk to me.
Because in the last show, we were talking the difference about shame and guilt, right?
Right.
So shame is, I am wrong.
Right.
Guilt is, I've done something wrong. Right? So shame is more about identity, that you identify with whatever the sin is, whatever the transgression, whatever the iniquity, that you identify with it, versus guilt is saying, okay, I did this, but I'm not that.
There we go.
Right? I failed at this, but I'm not a failure.
There we go.
You know?
I love that.
And so I love when you brought up King David, because I tell you, in 2016 and 2017, God had me really study King David.
Word. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
So here it is. You have this young shepherd boy, who was anointed by Samuel to be king at 17, but didn't actually take the throne until he was 30. Right? So there was this period of God really honing in on his anointing and really grooming him for the throne.
Correct.
And so I remember asking myself one day, like, how is it that God could call this man a man after his own heart, after he slept with Bathsheba, had Uriah put on the front lines of battle and killed, right? His daughter Tamar raped, just all kind of stuff, right? And because God said the sword will never depart from your home, but you guys will always keep the kingdom.
Correct.
But if you keep on reading that story, one of the things that God says is that, and the thing that David did displeased the Lord.
There we go.
It did not say that David displeased the Lord.
There we go.
Right? And so you have a lot of people who are walking around with all this fear, guilt, shame, condemnation, because they don't realize that their identity is not attached to whatever they did, right?
Correct.
And if you're a Christian, you know that there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk after, who walk after the Spirit. They don't walk after the flesh, right? Correct. And so there's a difference between sinning and practicing sin.
It is.
Right? So we gonna fall. We human. We gonna fall. But to keep falling and being rebellious means you're being intentional about those things. And I'm pretty sure at some point in your life you've been intentional about certain transgressions.
Yes.
Can you speak to us about any of those?
Oh, yeah. My shame, I would say this. My shame in my life is the mishandling of black women.
Ooh, wow.
You feel me?
Ooh.
That's my number one shame in life, is the mishandling of black women. Mm-hmm. I was raised by 5 aunts.
5 aunts?
5 aunts. My mom had 5 sisters. So there's 6 of them in total. And I was raised by my 5 aunts. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Each one of them poured something into my life that helped me grow as a young man.
Right.
And so when I started dating women, I didn't always put those things into practice.
Okay.
And so my ideology or my belief or understanding is, if you misuse one, you misuse them all.
Yeah.
That's fact, because I look at women as one.
Yeah.
I don't look at them as separate individuals. I see them as one.
Right.
So you hurt one, she gonna go and talk to her friends, and then they gonna hurt with her.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, we gonna have a crying party. We gonna sit around.
But see, at the time in my mental state, I'm not thinking about that.
Okay.
You feel me? I'm just thinking about, what can I get out of her? How can she please me?
Right.
The King David syndrome.
Yeah.
He saw Bathsheba and was like, yo, what can she do for me?
So objectifying women, seeing her as this objective, a pleasure, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Only what can she do for me? And I had that understanding for a while. I really did. I had that understanding for a while. Until a situation happened with a young lady, to where this was a young lady who I thought, or I knew that I was going to marry. I knew she was going to be the mother of my child, a whole 9. But my infidelity messed that situation up. Okay. It messed it, and she was hurt. I mean, it was the first time that I really saw a black woman cry in front of me, and to that extent.
Oh wow.
Like the hurt of that situation was like, wow. I messed this thing up. Yeah. And and as they say, when a woman is hurt.
Right. A woman scorned, boy.
When a woman is hurt.
Yeah. Like, get out of her way, because we are like a tidal wave of destruction.
So that brought so much shame to me. Okay. For the fact that I let this black woman down. That I let this black woman down. You know what I'm saying? And so the narrative of her life is going to be, I was with this guy that I thought was going to marry, but he messed it up. You see what I'm saying? And so that's a narrative that's in her life. Now, my narrative is, okay, after her, I met my wife, we got married, we had kids, I had a child, I'm going on. Yeah. But the narrative of her life is, he tripped out. Right. He did me wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I got to deal with that. Right. As a black man. You see what I'm saying? Who was raised by 5 aunts. Right.
Now, were there any men in around for you? Because I know you had all these aunts, but was there any male figures in your life?
Actually, my pops. I was raised in a 2-household family. Okay. 2-household family. My daddy was always there. One thing that I can't say about my father, out of everything, was that he was always present. Probably didn't always say much, but he was always there. Okay. His presence let me know, like, son, whatever it is going on in life, like what he taught me was, no matter how me and your mom disagree, no matter how much we argue, whatever, like, I'm here though. I ain't going nowhere. Wow. That's what he taught me. Okay. Like, so, so he was there. He taught me that. I have 2 older brothers as well. Okay. And so my 2 older brothers, they was in the streets young. Okay. You know what I'm saying? They kind of, strayed away very young. And so I learned not to follow their mistakes. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So they did still teach me something. Okay. They taught me not to follow.
What not to do.
Yeah, what not to do.
Yeah.
But I saw them also hurt black women.
Yeah.
I saw them get people pregnant and leave and not take care of the kids. I saw that. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I could never do that. Mm-hmm. So when my same situation happened, it was like, dang, man, out of all these lessons, here I am still tripping. King David syndrome.
Yeah.
Man. Like, it was. And to this day, that situation still affect me as a man.
Really?
To this day, yeah. To this
wow.
day, it really does, because, like I said, out of all the women that I've been with in my life, she was the one that I just knew. Yeah, we gonna.
Y'all gonna be there.
We was gonna be there. Yeah.
And see, I'm seeing this narrative play out a lot in our community, right? Where you have men who are like, they making all these kids, ain't no daddies around.
Right.
You know, you got a lot of single mothers, especially in church, right? So shoot, 75-80% of black churches are women, right?
Right.
On the roster, right? Women and children.
Women and children.
And gay dudes, right?
True.
Women, children, gay dudes.
Right.
And guys who like messed up and they trying to redeem themselves or whatever. And listen, we all messed up, right? So that's the perfect place you need to be when you're messing up. But I just feel like this narrative of men hurting women, because you got a lot of women out here who are scorned.
Yeah.
A lot of women who are out here scorned, who have been dogged out, have been played, you know, who have been used and abused by these men who look at them as objects of pleasure, right? Because I think guys have been socialized that way, especially in our community. I don't know what it looks like in other communities, but
in our community.
Yeah, but especially in black communities, like we glorify the wrong things. We glorify, you know, how many women you slept with, and you know, and how many times you've been able to get away with it, how many baby mamas you have. You know, when I look at these professional athletes, it's like you got all this money, but you throwing all of it away in child support every month. I don't get that. Right?
That's true.
But a life of me, I still don't understand that. But it's like, how can we change that narrative? Especially if we have a lot of these young men who don't have examples to follow, right? They're seeing the mothers being dogged out. They're seeing the aunts and the sisters, you know, and it's like this very vicious cycle. So how can we start to put things in place to break those vicious cycles?
Whew. That's a big question.
Yeah.
All right, so personally for me, when my daughter was born, I really saw the larger picture.
Okay.
You feel me? When my daughter was born. Because I remember being in school, and, you know, in school, you messing around with this young lady, you doing that, you doing that. And, and so I just remember, like, telling myself, like, man, if I have a daughter or if I have a child, I wouldn't want them to date someone like me.
Ooh.
See,
that's a moment of clarity right there.
But being young, I still was fooling around.
Okay.
Because I have yet to have that true experience of having.
True.
So when my daughter came, the reality of it, of holding my daughter, looking at her face, her being so innocent, so precious, and me saying, "Oh man, God forbid that the things that I did in my past, some knucklehead come along." And do this to my daughter.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because D.L. Hughley, he was on the Breakfast Club, and he said, every daughter you have is a bullet in the head of your youth.
Oh.
Right? Because, man, they look at these little girls, and it's like, man, I never want her to experience the things that I did to other women.
Man.
Right? So that becomes a moment of, like, that coming to Jesus moment, like, ugh. Okay, I've got this precious life here, and she's gonna grow up one day, right?
She's gonna grow up.
She's gonna grow up, and she's gonna like a boy one day, and there's gonna be some gentleman knocking at my door asking, can he take my daughter out? And it's like, have I done the best I can, you know, so that my daughter recognizes these type of men when she sees them, right?
Seneca, I don't like this.
I know.
But let's talk about it though. We gotta talk about the I love it.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, I think you and I were both lucky in the fact that we both grew up in a 2-parent household.
Dope.
So I always had my father around as well, and my dad is an awesome man. I call him the man's man, right? You know, you have the man, and then you have the man's man, the man that where the other men look up to this man, right? And so that was my father. And he was just an awesome guy. And I know he wasn't perfect, you know. I'm pretty sure him and my mom had their little spats or whatever the case may be. But he really showed us what it was to be treated like a man. I remember my dad used to take me on dates when I was a little girl, right? He used to take us all on our own individual dates.
That's dope.
Yeah, because he said, I always want you to know what a man is supposed to treat you like. But of course, you know, I grew up and I started having my own experiences, and you stray away sometimes and you come on back. But I'm just so grateful that I had the presence of my father in my life, because I feel like it really made a huge difference in my life in terms of how my life turned out, right? Because I had girlfriends who didn't have fathers, and they really strayed away and they got into things they shouldn't have got into, didn't go to school, you know, versus me. It was like I was very diligent about school and doing what I needed to do. But I know it's because I had a father in my household. And studies show that 90% of a woman's self-esteem comes from her father.
That's true. That is so true.
I mean, that is a huge number.
That is huge.
90% of a woman's self-esteem comes from her father, not a mother.
From her father.
Right? So mom can do the best she can, but if there's no male presence around to really validate her and affirm her, she'll go seeking that attention in the wrong man.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
She'll go looking for that in the wrong man. So just to kind of switch directions, I wanted to talk about, you know, we mentioned black men in the church.
Correct.
Right? So what does being a priest, a provider, and a protector mean to you?
Being a priest, provider, and a protector, to me, that's God mode.
Yeah.
That's God mode.
Yeah.
That's walking in the image and likeness of God himself.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
See what I'm saying? That's a calling.
It is.
That's a calling.
Very much so.
That's a calling that all men have to embrace. You can't run from it. You can't make a baby and be like, nah, I'm not that.
Yeah.
You feel me? You gotta walk in that. You gotta stand just like you walk in everything else.
Yeah.
You wanna be a player, you wanna be a gangster, you wanna be all that. You gotta walk in the divine calling, which I call it.
Yeah.
And so for myself, being a pastor, a prophet, a priest, a provider, and all this for my family.
Yeah.
Like I embraced that before my wife even came into the picture, before my daughter even came. Like I embraced that because I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So I had embraced it, you know, and that came right after the situation with the young lady.
Wow.
Like I really had to take like a year to myself and really put those principles in place, because I knew, okay, if me and her don't work out, if we don't get back together, it was like either we gonna get back together or God gonna send someone my way.
Okay.
And I gotta make sure that regardless of whatever happens, I'm ready.
Yeah, you're in alignment.
I'm in alignment with that. So for me, it's something that men have to, like, we have to walk in that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. Like, man, it's beautiful.
It is. It's a beautiful thing.
Man, it's beautiful. And most men, when you talk about it with most men, when you begin to like really, you know, put it in this perspective, like they look at it and be like, you know what, man, that is what's up though.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, to be a provider, to be a protector, like it's really rewarding.
Absolutely.
And it's rewarding to know that, you know, my wife doesn't have a need of anything. She may want a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? She may want a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You feel me? And me and my, like, we talk about that a lot. Like, she be wanting to do this, and this. And I'll be like, hey, I ain't got it. But what you need, I can take care of that. Though. You know, same thing with my daughter. My daughter, anytime we go to any store, she want everything that she see.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't get you everything, but what you need, I got you though.
That's
I'm
wonderful.
telling you know what I'm saying? So that's how God does with us. Like he's a supplier of all our needs.
That's right.
And as a man, I gotta make sure what we need, I can get it. Whether it's now or later, I'm gonna get it.
You mentioned a really important thing. Devon Franklin, I just finished reading his book about the truth about men, and it was a really good book. And one of the things he talked about was his dating life, right? He became celibate like in his 20s and stayed celibate until Megan came, right?
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's some discipline.
I was talk about, I did that. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I was celibate from, let's see, let me see, I was celibate from 19 to 20 when we got married. I was 24. Yeah, so from 19 to 24, so like for 5 years.
My God.
5 years, man. Long 5 years, man. Hey, it was necessary.
But that's honorable.
It was necessary.
Because I think that's one of the things. It's like celibate. Guys are like, oh, now, you know, if I need to test drive before I buy the merchandise, I need to know what I'm getting myself into, you know.
Hey, that's a very celibacy is a very, very vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Very, very vulnerable place, but it's a beautiful place once you identify it and you embrace it.
Wow.
It's nothing it's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
Like, it's really not. It's not a pickup line. It's not something you just tell women to make them feel like, oh, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's
yeah, because some brothers use that. They be like, oh, you know, I'm celibate. I'm working with the Lord right now. He keeping me and stuff, you know. And then the moment y'all get along, he like, yeah, so what up with that? What that mouth do? You like, nah, bro. I thought you said you was celibate.
Yeah, yo. And this is the thing about being celibate. And I was explaining this to a brother one time and this was during the time when I was celibate.
Okay.
And he was like, so how are you doing this?
Yeah.
And so basically I was telling him, like, look, like being celibate does not mean that you're not going to have sexual emotions.
No, it does not mean that at all.
It's not going to mean like when you see an attractive lady, you know that King David syndrome may be there.
Yeah.
You might be like, oh, who is that? You know what I'm saying, and all that. However, the sacrifice that you are willing to make for your bride, are you willing to make that sacrifice for your bride?
Ooh.
Are you willing to make the sacrifice for your bride?
Wow.
I was willing to make that sacrifice. So one day I'm going to be able to tell my daughter, look, daddy did his thing. I did my dirt when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it became a point in time when daddy made the choice before mommy came in the picture that I said, you know what? I'm not going to disrespect women no more sexually.
Right.
You
exactly. And I think, you know, one of the things is that you have to walk in that before you get it, right?
Got to.
Because most people think like, oh, marriage is a cure for infidelity
not
and
at
all that. Yeah, it's like,
not at all.
If this is the way you've been living, then it's not going to all of a sudden miraculously, you know, you're going to become this good man and stop.
Not
it's
at
like,
all.
no, if that's being your diet, whatever you feed yourself is going to grow. So if you keep on feeding yourself porn and all these other things, and then all of a sudden you get married and you feel like a switch is going to happen where, oh, now you're going to walk in the divine light and you're going to be, it don't happen that way. It don't happen.
Because look, as a married man, check this out. I still see other attractive women. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
The King David syndrome is still there, even after being celibate, even after meeting my wife. You feel what I'm saying? And we have no issues in the bedroom. You feel what I'm saying?
Amen, brother.
So in that space, like, there's the lower nature in me, that flesh nature.
Oh yeah.
That's never satisfied.
Of course.
You dig what I'm saying? So therefore, even in that, like, that switch don't go off. But I will say, making that sacrifice does make it better, because I believe if I didn't make that sacrifice, oh man, I would be destroying another black woman in my wife.
Yeah.
Who's sticking with me because we're just married. Yeah. And she don't want to leave me with a child. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Oh man, yeah.
Well, that's so wonderful that you could be so transparent about that, because I don't hear that a lot.
Got to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like guys, I was talking to another friend of mine, Jason, recently, and he was like, you know, Seneca, most men don't have a safe space. They don't have a place where they can go and be vulnerable. Now, is that true? Because I thought guys talked in the barbershops and things like that, but do you guys really dive deep? Do you have people that you can go to? Because, you know, women, we have shoulders we can cry on any day, all day, right? We always got someone we can talk to. We always got somebody we can confide in. But, like, can guys really get vulnerable with each other and be like, yo, dude, like, this is what I'm really struggling with?
We can, but, you know, we choose not to. And if we choose to, we feel like we got to go to a woman because she represents that soft space.
Okay.
You dig? Okay. I believe as men, the same way that I can talk about basketball, football, ESPN, rap music, and fashion, and everything else we talk about. Okay. I believe that we can go there, and I do have brothers that we can go there with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my brothers in ministry, man. Y'all know who y'all are out there.
I know that's
right. So yeah, so to connect on that level, to like put all that to the side and say, yo, like let's go there, and men, we need to go there. Yeah. Like, we have to go to that. We talk about everything else.
True.
You feel me? And as men, we can find that soft. We have that soft space. Yeah. I identify that soft space with my wife, not just in the bedroom. That's another thing men have to understand.
Okay.
That soft space is just not in the bedroom.
Okay.
You dig what I'm saying?
Okay.
That soft space is not just reserved when you get around mama and sister or with baby girl. Like, you can have that soft space with your brother and not feel weak. If he's really your brother, he's not gonna look at you as weak.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He's gonna see that as a strength.
Absolutely.
And be like, man, I can talk to my brother about this. My brother can cry with me.
That's right.
You feel what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And not look weak.
Yeah.
And whack, as we call it. we can do that. And men, we don't always have to go to women.
Yeah.
You can go to your brother.
You can.
Know what I'm saying? Find a brother out there. That's why I make myself available. As a counselor, you know what I'm saying? I make myself available to men and be like, yo, you want to talk, man? Let's talk about it. I'm willing. Let me listen to you, because a lot of times brothers just need somebody to listen to.
Hear them out, huh?
That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
That's a beautiful thing. One of the things I love about my church and my pastor is that anytime the men come up for prayer, he always embraces them. Right? And it's such a beautiful moment, such a vulnerable moment where I've seen grown men just break down at the altar, right? Just cry in his arms. And I think that is such a beautiful thing and something that we need to see more of with our men being vulnerable. Saint, it has been an honor talking with you. Thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable. You dropped a lot of jewels, a lot of nuggets that men really need to hear. So we thank you so much for joining into the Green Sofa. We thank you, Saint, for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.